The year is 2020, the world has been overwhelmed with something oddly named the My Coronavirus, and reading the news has become a full-body workout. The day is Friday, which means it's time for Fake News Friday. Viva Frei, Montreal litigator turned YouTuber, reporting from my home office. It is beautiful, it's got lots of lighting, I can hear the birds chirping. There is some context to this week's episode of Fake News Friday. About a week ago, I did a vlog breaking down what I felt to be a totally unjustified media response to certain comments Trump made during a press conference about the My Coronavirus. In that video, while I did acknowledge that Trump is not necessarily the best at weighing his words, especially when speaking to a fundamentally hostile media, I did blast the media for what I feel to be a totally disingenuous and reckless manner in which they reported on his words. I was disappointed, but not at all surprised at the propensity of the media to fabricate the drama, to fabricate the controversy so they can generate clicks to themselves. The very next day, faced with what I felt to be an That's my kid running down the street. Where are you going?
Off the park.
2 meter distance. What was I saying? Yes, the very next day, faced with what I felt to be an untenable explanation given by Trump as to what he meant by using those words, the use of the word sarcasm.
No, I was asking a question sarcastically to reporters like you, just to see what would happen.
You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
I did a follow-up video which was critical of Trump and illustrated the principle that in life, like in law, once you've stepped in poop, sometimes the best thing to do is to just stop walking around. Now, oddly enough, the first video I did on the subject where I was critical of the media was demonetized, whereas the second video I did on the subject, which was critical of Donald Trump, was not demonetized. I am not drawing any conclusions or inferences, I am merely stating the facts and letting everyone else come to their own conclusions and inferences. But that is what happened. Now, in both videos, I noticed in the comment section a lot of people saying that in the wake of these comments that Trump made during the press conference, apparently, allegedly, supposedly, calls to the Poison Control Center started spiking. People posted links to articles in the comment section of the videos on YouTube. People sent me DMs with links to articles. People tweeted me. They said, whoa, look at what happened in the wake of these comments. That's how dangerous words can be. And I read those articles and I said, well, I know what I'm doing for next week's episode of Fake News Friday.
Fake News Friday, oh yeah!
Now, for the purposes of this vlog and illustrating the full-body mental workout that we have to go through when reading the media today, I am only picking on a Forbes article. I'm using the Forbes article in particular because even if you are inclined to believe that all of mainstream news is fake news, I think we can all agree that Forbes has a relatively good reputation within the media industry. Similar, if not outright identical articles appeared everywhere, from People to Global News. Global News, for those of you who don't know, is a Canadian news outlet. So with that backdrop, it is time to flex our brain muscles, and I'm going to show you what exercise we have to go through when reading the news. Calls to poison centers spike after the president's comments about using disinfectants to treat the My Coronavirus. If one were to read nothing more than this headline, they would presumably come away with two salient facts. The first fact being that Trump discussed using disinfectants to treat the My Coronavirus, and the second fact that calls to poison control centers spiked after those comments. They would come away understanding two salient facts and an implied causal connection between the two facts. Those are the two facts that any reasonable person would understand if all they read were the headline. According to one study, 59% of the links that are shared on social media are never actually clicked. Which means that all that is happening is that people are reading the headlines without actually reading the body of the article. And if you're unfamiliar with a documentary song by a group called Lazy Boy, check it out. It's called We Only Read the Headlines. So yeah, media outlets pretty much take for granted that a substantial portion, if not the outright majority of people, are not going to read the body of the article. They are only going to read the headline. So this particular headline makes two statements of fact and invites the reader to draw an inference between those two facts. But let's just see, are those facts substantiated in the body of the article? Words have consequences. Yes, they do, and you know it. It's as simple as that, and words coming from the President of the United States matter. They matter because words and direction coming from the President are typically taken seriously by people who live in the US. When Donald Trump said that he would consider exploring the use of, and I'll let you read it, the medical community shuddered due to the dangerous and irresponsible implications of this suggestion. As drafted, this reporter is stating another fact, that Donald Trump made a specific suggestion. I'm not going to go over what I said in my original vlog, except to say that I believe that this is a mischaracterization of what Donald Trump said in that press conference. That is my opinion, having heard the words, having watched the press conference, and what this reporter is doing right now is sharing his opinion as a statement of fact. But people certainly listened to his words, as officials from the Maryland Emergency Management Agency sent out an alert one day after receiving more than 100 calls about ingesting these things as possible treatment for the My Coronavirus, according to the governor's office, and reported by ABC News. Meanwhile, calls to the New York City's Poison Control Center for exposure to specific household cleaners and disinfectants increased more than twofold after the president's comments on Thursday. And this is the statement of of fact that brings this article from the realm of news to the reality of fake news. Data from the New York Poison Center revealed that in the 18 hours after Trump's comments, the Poison Center received 30 exposure calls about disinfectants. 10 involved bleach, 9 were about Lysol, and 11 others regarding other household cleaners. Now recall that the headline referred to a spike in calls to poison controls. A spike is necessarily a comparative statement. A spike necessarily has to be a spike in relation to the baseline or in comparison to another similar timeline. So while the article states the fact that 100 calls were placed to the Maryland Emergency Management Agency, we don't have a basis for comparison, so we can't call that a spike. For all we know, it could in fact be a decrease from the day before. A figure without a comparison cannot be called a spike, it can just be called a figure. And in order to make sense of the impact or the meaning of that figure, we need to have something to compare it to. In the next paragraph, the author states that in the 18 hours following Trump's comments, the New York Poison Control Center received something like 30 calls. Compared to the same time window last year, there were a total of 13 exposure calls, with 2 involving bleach, but none involving Lysol-type products. So according to the article, within the same time window year over year, there was something like twice as many calls to the New York Poison Control Center. Okay, what might be different between 2020 and 2019? Oh, I don't know, maybe a little something called the My Sharonis Cyrus. But there still is a very material ambiguity about the time frame that we are referring to now. The author is referring to the 18 hours following Trump's comments to cite the spike in calls to poison control, but he's comparing it to the same time window from last year, which I doubt very much is an 18-hour window. In the following paragraphs, we add a little more butter to the bread of the misleading information. The state of Illinois has also seen a significant increase in calls to poison control over the past 2 days, according to Dr. Ngozi Ezike, Illinois Public Health Director, in a press conference earlier today. What followed after these dangerous comments was no short of a frantic rush by manufacturers, Clorox and Lysol, the CDC, EPA, and other state emergency management agencies that disinfectants were in no shape or form to be used inside the human body. But it is only 9 paragraphs into the article for anyone with the attention span to have actually gotten there that we start to get some information that shows us that the headline was somewhat misleading. But even before Trump mentioned use of disinfectants at his press conference, fear of the Cyrus sparked online conspiracy theories and discussions about using bleach to cleanse the body internally. And what is this interesting fact we see from the official Twitter account of the Washington Emergency Management? Even before all of this, the Washington Poison Center says that the number of exposures to household cleaning products like bleach increased by 23% from the number of exposures reported at this time in 2019. And buried even further into this article, beyond the headline and beyond the first 12 paragraphs, I think, is the admission of the material fact. Still, it's important to mention that a CDC study released earlier this week found that calls to U.S. poison centers for cleaners and disinfectants rose significantly compared with the same period over the past 2 years. What's clear is that the president's comments
won't make matters any better,
especially in light of already concerning CDC and local poison center data on spikes in exposure to cleaners and disinfectants. It's the quietest place I can find. Hey, you doing good?
A lot of people work from home, but you're working from the car.
I leave the home to work in the car. Take care. One does not have to be a lawyer or have a PhD in linguistics to understand that there is a material difference between not making a situation better and being causally responsible for that situation. This article started off with a headline that stated as fact that calls to poison centers spiked after Donald Trump's comments. The logical inference that any reasonable reader would come to based on that headline is that Donald Trump was responsible for the alleged spike to calls in poison control, and this as a result of his comments. Only upon reading the article do we see that there is in fact no comparison to justify the statement of fact that there was a spike. Not only that, but it's only in reading the article even further that we see that the increase in calls to poison control and exposures to bleach and household disinfectants in fact predates Trump's comments by upwards of 2 months. Not only that, but it's in reading the article even further that the author finally admits that Trump's comments won't make matters any better. Do you know what that means? It won't make matters any better? It's an admission that his comments were not the cause of the problem in the first place, contrary to what is implied in the headline. Yes, I nailed that sentence.
I nailed it.
And then only at the tail end of the article does the author write as follows: medical advice should come from medical professionals, not from politicians or Facebook, said Matthew G. Hines, MD. I think we can pretty much all agree on that, and I dare say, if I do recall correctly, I think I heard Donald Trump say as much in that press conference.
So that you're going to have to use medical doctors with, but it sounds interesting to me.
And here's the thing, I think we can also probably all agree that Trump sometimes through his words doesn't make matters any better, especially when dealing with a hostile press that looks to twist and manipulate and exploit his words in the worst possible sense so that they can get more clicks on their articles. While Trump obviously could have phrased his words a little better during the press conference, I still think that what the media did was absolutely reckless and irresponsible. I think that the media mischaracterized Trump's words and then amplified their mischaracterization of it in order to create the outrage. And in so doing, I believe believe that the media gave more people bad ideas than Trump's comments would have ever done in the first place, but that's what the media does in order to generate traffic. And it is the exact same thing with this article. The headline states as a fact that Trump made certain comments about using disinfectants to treat the mycoronavirus, and then states as a fact that so many people believe this that there was a spike in calls to poison control centers. On the one hand, it is, in my opinion, the same mischaracterization of what Trump said at the press conference, coupled with an incorrect statement of fact that people were somehow responding to Trump's comments when in fact the spike started months earlier. And the author specifically admits as much in his own article when he says that Trump's comments won't make matters any better, which is a tacit admission that Trump's comments did not make the matter what it was.
The truth shall set you free!
But you would only learn that if you read the entire article and you read it meticulously with an analytic mind. And that is what makes this kind of fake news the most insidious kind of fake news, because you think you are being fed facts when you are in fact being misled. And with that said, that brings us to the end of this week's episode of Fake News Friday. If you like my videos and you like my content, please be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, drop a comment in the comment section below. It feeds the algorithm. If you want to support the channel, the support links are in the pinned comment. But above all else, take care of yourselves, stay safe, stay healthy, and now you know your vlog. Peace out. Booyah!